Hi, and welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. I'm Renee Williams, and I'm here with my co-host, Billy Thomas, and we both work for the University of Kentucky Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. And we greatly appreciate you joining us today for another great show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be with you all today on a cloudy day here in Lexington, Kentucky, but that's okay. We're going to be talking all about trees and forest health, so it's a beautiful day in Kentucky whenever we can do that. We appreciate y'all joining us, whether you join us via Zoom or via Facebook Live. If you're on Zoom, you can use the chat function, and if you're on Facebook Live, please use the comment section. But Renee, today's show I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about some forest health issues. We have our very own Dr. Ellen Crocker. It's put together a nice video segment for us for that. We also have Dr. Mary Arthur, who is helping lead the Urban Forestry Initiative, and we got a big week coming up on Tree Week, so we'll be learning all about that. And then we have Laurie Thomas who's going to be talking about the Tree of the Week. So lots of trees, lots of forest health, a great day to be from the woods today.
Right, trees, and more trees. That's what we're all about, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so let's bring on our first guest.
All right.
Hey, everyone. Doing
great.
great.
Hey, Dr. Crocker, how are you?
I'm doing great. Excited to be with you all talking forest health. I guess, that's not the first time I've been on talking about forest health.
And won't be the last.
Guaranteed.
But today I put together a kind of short introductory video about what is this whole woodland health thing anyways, kind of the very basics of what do we mean when we're talking forest or woodland health, what are some of the characteristics of healthy and unhealthy woods, and then what are some of the major kind of threats out there. So this is kind of a short introduction to this big topic area that we've talked about a lot on this show, and we will continue to talk about with the pesky plant segments and the what's bugging my tree sections. Everyone wants a healthy woodland or forest, but what exactly does that mean? In general, the idea of forest health looks at the ecological conditions of forests and woodlands, taking into account a wide range of factors, including age, growth, diversity, insect pests, diseases, invasive plants, wildlife attributes, aesthetics, and resilience to disturbance. These are then weighed against particular land management goals. What constitutes a healthy forest can vary widely and depend on where you are, what you have, and what you want. But there are a few common characteristics of healthy and unhealthy woodlands in our area that can be a useful guide. Full canopies, good stand structure with a mix of different tree age, size class, vigorous native plant communities, and the potential for regeneration of desirable trees are common characteristics of healthy, vibrant woodlands. While some tree death is normal and unavoidable in woodlands, other threats can jeopardize stands and forestry operations. Let's walk through a few of the most serious threats to forest health in Kentucky. From leaf spots to caterpillars, native diseases and insects are common, but typically not a major problem for the health of your trees. They pop up each year and can sometimes cause widespread damage that looks concerning. For example, some years, outbreaks of yellow poplar weevil and yellow poplar trees will cause trees to look brown and look like they're dying, but those trees typically recover just fine. Invasive insects and diseases, on the other hand, can be big problems because they can kill healthy trees and virtually eliminate some species from our systems. The term invasive means that they're native to some other part of the world, and after coming here, they can cause big negative impacts. Perhaps the clearest example of a forest health threat that's invasive is the emerald ash borer. The larvae of this beetle tunnel under the bark of ash trees and kill trees by cutting off their circulation. The emerald ash borer was first detected in Kentucky in 2009. Since that time, it's swept through much of the state and is currently moving into the western parts of the state. It has killed millions of ash trees during this time. In addition to the emerald ash borer, the hemlock woolly adelgid is another serious invasive threat in our state, killing hemlocks in the eastern part of Kentucky. Historically, invasive diseases like chestnut blight and Dutch elm disease have fundamentally changed our forests. Prior to the arrival of chestnut blight, which is an invasive fungus, American chestnut made up 1 out of every 4 trees in the southern Appalachians. It was a huge species. From a wildlife perspective, those nuts that it produced, from a timber perspective, producing straight and rot-resistant wood, and for people who ate those nuts as well. After the arrival of the blight, however, it virtually eliminated that species in our woods. You can still find a few sprouts here and there that have popped up. Those are sprouting up from the root systems of those trees that have been killed by the blight. And unfortunately, we've seen very little resistance naturally present in our woods. Similarly, the loss of American elm trees due to Dutch elm disease was huge. This impact tended to be larger in cities where elm was extensively planted as a street tree, and of course ash was planted to replace it, which has now been killed off by the emerald ash borer. What can we do about invasive insects and diseases? It depends on the threat as well as your situation, but in general, diversity gives us the biggest buffer when it comes to the threat posed by new invasive insects and diseases. The best way to protect your woodlands is promoting diversity. While we can't predict the next thing that's going to come in and hurt our trees, diversity maximizes the odds that only a limited number of trees will be impacted. While individual trees can be protected from particular threats, like insecticide treatments for emerald ash borer, this typically isn't an option for most woodland owners who might have more area that they can reasonably do with that. However, there are still management options that you can take that will promote the health of your trees and improve the ability of your woods to recover from these threats as they come in. In addition, the movement of contaminated firewood is a key way that a lot of these threats are moved around on the landscape. You want to keep in mind always buy local, burn local, and not transport untreated firewood very far. Even if it looks fine to you, it could be harboring tiny little insects or fungi that could spread to other trees and kill them. If you notice unusual tree death and decline, make sure to let your county agent or your KDF forester know. There are always new invasive species arriving. For example, a couple summers ago, we first detected laurel wilt disease in Kentucky, which kills spicebush and sassafras trees. There are things out there in the world that could kill oak trees, could kill maple trees, and we don't want those to spread. So if you see something, make sure to say something, and hopefully we can stop that problem before it spreads. Invasive plants are another major forest health threat. Unlike insects and diseases, which can hurt trees outright, those invasive plant species are going to be outcompeting those native plants, as well as reducing regeneration and potential diversity over time. They can also seriously get in the way of your management if you're relying on natural regeneration, and instead of getting the native species you want to see, you have a sea of invasive plants. While this sounds minor, over time it can have a big impact and completely change the nature of forests and woodlands. Invasive plants can come in all shapes and sizes, from invasive trees like Callery pear, princess tree, and tree of heaven, to shrubs like bush honeysuckle, autumn olive, and burning bush, to grasses and smaller plants like miscanthus, microstegium, and garlic mustard, to vines like kudzu, Japanese honeysuckle, and winter creeper. Managing invasive plants depends on the plant you're dealing with, and different invasive plants are most problematic in different areas. It's important to first identify the problem so that you can figure out how to best tackle it. There are different resources available to help you, as well as cost share options through NRCS for landowners who are managing invasive plants. Many times this involves a mix of mechanical control, chemical control, and other integrated pest management options for invasive plants, so it's important to always do your research and always follow the label if you're using herbicides. Invasive plant management is not a once and done activity. New invasives are going to continue to sprout up, either from roots or carried in by birds, and the earlier you can catch those and eradicate those, the less work it'll be. In addition, you always want to keep an eye out for new invasives that might arrive to your area. Not yet here, but likely to come in the future and cause a big problem, because if you can catch those early, it's much easier to deal with them than if you're playing catch up already after they've already established broadly. For example, in Kentucky, we have species like Japanese chatflower, lesser celandine, and many more that if you can learn to recognize, you could stop them before they become a problem. There are many other factors that can negatively affect the health of our forests and woodlands, from extreme weather events like drought, tornadoes, and ice storm, to wildfires, to a legacy of past management, maybe poor management, that has left your trees and woods in bad conditions. In addition, minor stresses can really add up over time and stress trees out, make them more susceptible to other issues in the future. While poor management can really decrease the health of your woods, effective management can improve the resilience and vigor of your trees and improve the health of your woods overall. If you'd like to learn more about woodland health, there are lots of great resources for you out there. In particular, I'd recommend you check out the new Healthy Woods app. It will walk you through assessing the health of your woods, the different characteristics you should be looking for, and also connect you to resources for next steps in your management. It's free and available for smartphones. Thanks for joining me today and learning a little bit more about woodland health. If you'd like to learn more, make sure to check us out online and follow us on social media.
Well, Ellen, thank you for that presentation. And you talked about new invasives as if we need any more. And right before we started, you actually mentioned a new invasive that's coming our way.
Oh yeah. So there are always new invasive species on the horizon. And I think it can get discouraging because you're like, well, what's the point in doing anything? They're all going to get here anyways. And I'd really encourage people to be optimistic about it, and that the longer we can keep them from arriving, the more time we can buy ourselves, the better prepared we're going to be to deal with it when it does arrive. Not only might we have more tools in our toolbox, but maybe that insect or that plant will have acquired kind of more enemies that keep it in check. So the longer we can wait for them to arrive, the better. And so just to give you one example of the benefits of reporting something early, if you're seeing something or managing it early, instead of waiting for it to get out of control. I mentioned that there's an invasive that attacks maples. There is one just to our north in kind of southern Ohio. They have the Asian longhorn beetle, which is a large insect that can tunnel in and kill a wide range of trees, but it really likes maple trees. It's native to Asia, and it's been repeatedly accidentally introduced with packaging material. And they have this little pocket of it there in southern Ohio that they're trying to eradicate, which is really exciting because someone detected it early, and that means that they can kind of go in and try to kill all of it and get rid of all of it before it spreads into our woods. Because I don't know about you, but I like maples and I like maple syrup, and I don't want anything to impact that. And that's an example with an insect of someone, seeing something and reporting it, and I think really saving all of us from having to deal with that. Just this past week, we had a landowner report a new invasive plant, mile-a-minute-weed, which is in some of our neighboring states, but we really don't want here. It's got lots of thorns. It will kind of vine over areas and carpet them. We would like to keep that out as long as possible. And that landowner reported it on iNaturalist, a citizen science app, and reached out to us, and we've been working with them to come and try to eradicate it before it spreads elsewhere.
Is there a reason for its name?
Well, it spreads a mile a minute, right?
Oh, I was hoping you were not going to say that.
Yeah, well, not quite a mile a minute, but you get the picture.
I get the point. It's quick.
Yeah. So, I just want to kind of give recognition to those people who observe these things and can report them. I know that spotted lanternfly was recently detected just across the Ohio River from us in southern Indiana. And when that happened, there were a lot of news articles about it. And I got a lot of photos from different people like, is this spotted lanternfly? Unfortunately, none of the ones in Kentucky that I received were spotted lanternfly. We don't have it yet in the state, but I would rather get 100 emails like that and catch the one that is spotted lanternfly. So maybe we could do something about it. So if you've got something new, I really recommend you reach out to your county agent, your forester, or me, and share that, because maybe it's nothing, and we can talk about it. But if it is something significant, we'd like to tackle that before it gets out of control.
Yeah, Ellen, you make such a great case for not to give up, right? And I really appreciate that because it can seem a little overwhelming, but you really gave so many great examples of why, if we can kind of be vigilant and keep small problems from becoming big problems, it'll help us in the long run. So I can't thank you enough for what you're doing to try to keep our forest healthy and rallying the troops around. It's really awesome.
Well, and if you'd like to learn more about invasive plants, I have several upcoming trainings that you are invited to. In particular, there are several happening during Tree Week. And we're going to hear a little bit more about Tree Week later in the show. But there's opportunities, whether you're joining us remotely through a webinar, there's opportunities in person to learn about some of these, and then to actually get your hands dirty and do some invasive plant management. In addition, the Kentucky Invasive Plant Council is going to have a conference the morning of November 16th with speakers from around the country talking about, the sale of invasive plants, the use of native alternatives to invasives, as well as invasive plants to have on your radar.
All right. Wonderful.
But yeah, that's awesome. We'll share that information, soon with others so that they can get signed up. You can always check our calendar for events at ukforestry.org to find out what's going on. But yeah, lots of Tree Week stuff coming up here real soon for sure.
Thank you, Ellen. We greatly appreciate you being on and talking about that with us.
Thanks for having me on today.
Always good. Always good.
So before we get into Tree Week, though, we have our Tree of the Week.
Yes. Hey, Laurie, how are you?
Good. It's good to be back. I haven't been here for a couple of weeks.
Well, you've been out teaching children about forestry and the forestry field days and all kinds of great stuff. I know you're doing good work.
Yeah, we had a great set of field days at Mammoth Cave last week. Got another one coming up tomorrow, and we've got some in Carter County and a little later in the month. So but yeah, it's been a good time being back out there, getting some hands-on activity going on. So, but we've got a Tree of the Week this week, and this one is one that it's Osage orange. I'll just spill it right now. It's one I really liked. It was I learned it easily in dendrology. It's got some really unique characteristics. Once you all see it, if you don't know it by that name, you may know it by hedge apple, or we'd also heard it called horse apple as well. So here's Osage orange.
Wonderful.
All right, I'll get it rolling.
I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Extension, and I'm here with the Tree of the Week, the Osage orange. Osage orange, Maclura pomifera, is the only species in the Maclura genus, and it is a member of the Moraceae, or the mulberry family. It is also known as hedge apple, mock orange, and bowwood. It is a small to medium-sized tree that averages about 35 to 65 feet tall. Trees tend to have a short, stout trunk and a rounded crown. The Osage orange was commonly used as a windbreak in the prairie states, and its large, unusual-looking fruit resembles a large, bumpy apple, thus its name hedge apple. The native range of Osage orange was limited to a narrow band in southern Arkansas, southern Oklahoma, and northeast Texas. As you can see in the map, it's the green part on the map. Today it has been introduced into most of the continental United States and has become naturalized throughout much of eastern and midwestern United States. In Kentucky, it is found in the central to northern central part of the state into western Kentucky. The native and naturalized populations are found on rich bottomlands and sandy terraces. It often occurs in thickets along fence rows, in ditches and ravines, as well as in overgrazed pastures. In Kentucky, we often find it growing with eastern red cedar, black walnut, hickories, elms, and honey locust. It is classified as intermediate to intolerant of shade and is considered a pioneer species on sites. Osage orange is a deciduous tree with alternately arranged simple leaves that are pinnately veined, with veins radiating on both sides from one midrib out to the end of the leaf, as you can see in the photo. They are oblong to egg-shaped with entire or smooth margins. The upper surface is green and shiny, and in fall the color is typically golden to yellow. Osage orange is dioecious, which means trees have either male or female flowers. The female flowers are in dense round clusters, and the male flowers are in roundish racemes, and neither are especially showy. The flowers bloom in later spring into early summer, and the flowers are wind-pollinated. The fruit is very distinctive. It looks like a bumpy ball. It is actually a round collection of multiple drupes that each contain a seed. The outer surface is bumpy and many describe it as looking like brains. It's about 2 to 5 inches in diameter and it's usually yellowish green to bright green in color. It has a citrus smell and exudes a milky white juice if crushed. The fruit matures in early autumn, and trees begin producing seed around 10 years of age and are most productive between 25 and 65 years of age. Good seed crops are produced most years, and the seeds are dispersed by animals, gravity, and water. Trees can also reproduce vegetatively from stump sprouts. The bark is orange-brown and develops scaly, thick ridges with irregular furrows. The twigs are usually armed with stout, unbranched thorns located at each leaf scar, and the twigs also exude a milky sap when cut. The wood is heavy and straight-grained. The heartwood is golden to bright yellow, which will darken with age and exposure to light. It is a ring porous species with large to very large early wood pores, about 2 to 3 wide. That's the wood that's formed in the early part of the growing season. With small late wood pores, which is wood that's formed later in the growing season, and you can see that in the middle photo. The pores are filled with tyloses and growth rings are easy to distinguish. The wood is extremely durable and is considered one of the most decay-resistant woods in North America. Osage orange can be confused with black locust and mulberry wood, but a few key differences are Osage orange is heavier and the wood releases a water-soluble dye, which is yellow, if you put the shavings into water. Osage orange is limited to moderately valuable for wildlife. The trees provide shelter for a variety of wildlife, especially small mammals that will use the thorny trees for cover. The fruit is bitter tasting and eaten by just a few animals, including the squirrels, fox, red crossbill, and occasionally northern bobwhite, and woodpeckers use the trees as forage sites for insects. Osage orange generally is not harvested for lumber due to its crooked and knotty trunks and its size. The wood, however, is used for board or small turning blocks. The wood is used for small specialty items like bowls, and it's also used for fence posts, archery bows, and musical instruments. Osage orange wood extractives have been used for food processing and in pesticide manufacturing and dye making. And the trees are occasionally used in landscaping, but since the tree does not self-prune its lower branches that have died and the fruit is messy, consideration should be taken when using this tree in landscaping. Also, if using in landscaping, look for the thornless male variety. The national champion Osage orange as of 2021 is in Charlotte, Virginia. It is 328 inches in circumference, 65 feet tall, with a 93-foot crown spread. The Kentucky champion Osage orange is in Madison County. It is 240 inches in circumference, 72 feet tall, with a 104-foot crown spread. Now for a few fun facts about Osage orange. Early settlers of the Great Plains used Osage orange for hedgerows. The thorny branches formed impassable hedges which were used to fence in livestock. The early French settlers named the trees Bois d'Arc, or bow wood, because they observed the wood being used for bow making by Native Americans. The common name Osage is derived from the Osage Native Americans who shared young plants with early colonial explorers according to the notes of Meriwether Lewis in 1804. There are numerous historic Osage orange trees, including one on the grounds of Fort Harrod, a Kentucky pioneer settlement in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. The scientific genus name McClura is named in honor of William McClure, 1763 to 1840, who was a Scottish-born American geologist, and the species name Pomifera means fruit-bearing, referring to the large, distinctive fruit. I hope you get the opportunity to get out into your woodland, a local park, or neighborhood and enjoy the beautiful Kentucky trees, including the distinctive Osage orange.
Well, thank you, Lori. We greatly appreciate that. And, some of that fruit looks like it would be bigger than the animals were going to eat it. But and those thorns looked very, very sharp. Is there a male variety that doesn't have thorns?
There is. And I want in the male variety, two that pop up a lot are the Wichita and the white shield. And they're both out of Oklahoma. But at the same time, while you think about that, if you want to plant that in your yard, you may not want that fruit, or you want to make sure you get a male. But, in a big, large landscape and you're just wanting to plant some trees out there, this would be a really nice unique addition, where you didn't worry so much about the fruit like up in your yard or something. So
Yeah.
it is, it's a really cool tree, and that bark, the wood is gorgeous in that. I know we have wood carvers here in Fayette County, and they love to get Osage orange wood and do small carvings with it. So
I know they have one of these trees at Veterans Park, because my daughter one time when we went walking was like, what is this? So,
I know.
It is not a weapon. Yes.
right.
No.
I don't eat it, evidently.
Yeah. Oh, Laurie, I love these trees of the week. They're really good. I remember learning Osage orange, when we were students, but you always bring back a few facts that I forgot. Yeah, it's a great series.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I even went and visited. So we learned the ones at the Lexington Cemetery, and that was, I went over, took some pictures of the Osage orange over there, and they are actually thornless, the ones that are growing over there. So, so yeah, pretty cool.
Cool.
So if you do get out, you'll see it right now. It's fruiting. You can get out if you're driving around, like, Kentucky, especially central to western part, you'll see it out in the landscape. It's a pretty cool tree.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh, very cool.
Thanks
Love
again.
them.
We
Keep them
appreciate it.
coming.
All right.
All right. So Renee, we've been teasing this the whole show.
The whole
right?
show, exactly.
And now we finally get to talk about Tree Week.
Right. So we have Dr. Arthur on here to talk about Tree Week and let us know a little bit about what it is.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about it. And that Tree of the Week from Laurie was a fantastic segue. I'm going to be talking about Osage orange a little later, but I learned a few things about it that I think are going to help me when I'm talking to our audience at our signature tree planting. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I've got a short PowerPoint.
Right.
Okay, so Tree Week is coming up. Tree Week is happening October 9 through 16 this year. It's going to be the 4th year that we've celebrated Tree Week. And we're going to be including some other towns as well: Berea, Georgetown, Hazard, and Paducah. And so I'm going to lead you through a little bit just exactly what Tree Week is and why we do it. And so I'm hoping to touch on each of these things. What is Tree Week? How is it started? Why do we host it every year? How is it important to the community? And then I'm going to come back around, and I've selected just a few events to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the extension events because I know they've got that covered, and I think they're going to be mentioning it at the end of this webinar. But I just wanted to highlight a few to give you a sense about the diversity of the events that we have coming up. So Tree Week is actually a bunch of things. It's certainly a week-long series of events. Those events all have to be in some way about urban trees and the nature where we live, but they don't have to focus on trees. So they could be about yoga under the trees or taking a bike ride where you're looking at trees. There's lots of different ways that we're trying to engage people around, like I said, urban trees and the nature where we live. Tree Week is also hosted and organized by community members. And so what UFI does, and I'll introduce UFI in just a minute here, is that we provide the backbone for Tree Week, and then many, many different hosts host individual events throughout the week. These posters here just show you, we've done it for 4 years now, starting in 2018. We've got this iconic artwork that comes from a local press here in Lexington, Cricket Press. And yes, we did manage to have Tree Week last year in fall of 2020. And what we found was that we could figure out how to have more virtual events, which people wanted. And we also discovered people were so hungry last year for a way to get outside and be socially or physically distanced and get to interact with other people and the outdoors. And so I think that's one of the things that Tree Week does for us every year. And last year was a really big year for that. But it turns out this year is an even bigger year than any we've had so far. And I'm going to tell you about that. So we have more than 65 events planned for the Tree Week in Lexington. And then we also have events around the Commonwealth. Because we have so many events in Lexington, we put together a brochure. And this is just the cover of it, but it looks like this. And so I just want to call your attention to a couple of things. First of all, the Tree Week partners. We have many, many Tree Week partners. I can't name them all. And I'll come back around to that shortly. But we also have a bunch of events that are self-guided. So you can do it on your own wherever you are. And we have some pre-Tree Week events. Fayette County Public Schools is very involved in Tree Week, but those events don't show up individually on the schedule. But you'll see every single day of Tree Week has some events. And so it's going to be a week when we can really celebrate trees and hopefully draw people in more to thinking about trees. So how was Tree Week started? it sort of started with a kernel of an idea. I've been in the forestry department now for almost 30 years, and I'm a forest ecologist. So all of my work has really been in natural ecosystems. But all this time I've thought, well, we live in Lexington, and Lexington has this great urban forest. And what would it look like for us to think about ways to engage people more about the trees where we live? And so in 2014, so in 2014, we started something called the Urban Forest Initiative. And I have this picture here just to say, because it reminds me to say, when we start to talk to people about the trees where they live, we learn that people really sort of light up. When we ask them if they have a favorite tree, it turns out an awful lot of people have a favorite tree, sometimes from their childhood. When we ask them how they feel about trees, they can often wax rather eloquent about their relationship to trees. And so it told us, wow, there's a lot of ways for people to resonate with trees. And so we started something called the Urban Forest Initiative. And here I'm just showing the core team of people who work with the Urban Forest Initiative team. And we refer to it as UFI. So it's an initialism, but it's also kind of cute sounding. So we are UFI. And UFI is not just the core team, but it's also a collaborative group of University of Kentucky and Lexington community stakeholders. And our whole purpose is to promote and protect urban trees, urban tree canopies, both on campus in Lexington and across the Commonwealth. So I really want to highlight that UFI isn't just the core team of people that I just showed you their pictures of, but it's also a working group. And so when we first started this in 2014, a lot of people came to our meetings. We meet about 6 times a year. And so we realized, there's just so much energy around our urban tree canopy, how we can maintain it better, how we can build it, how we can build relationships across all of the people who are working on it. And that's what the UFI working group is. And that's the group that birthed Tree Week. Okay, so UFI also does all these other things. I'm not going to go into them. And then, of course, Tree Week. And so Tree Week is truly a grassroots event. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But why do we host it? Well, let's look at Tree Week by the numbers. Every year, we have 40 to 65 events, and they're hosted by somewhere between 30 and 50 different unique hosts. And so that says something about people's interest in engaging around trees. Attendance at these events is anywhere from just a couple of people who might come to a smaller event to several dozens. We had one event that had 100 people for a tree hike, a tree walk at the cemetery, and they had to divide into 2 different groups. And we have return hosts every year. And so that has really encouraged us to keep doing it. We realized, the people who are hosting these events, they're getting a lot out of it. And what they're getting out of it is this realization that the people who come to their events are getting a lot out of it. And so we keep hosting it. And this year, we're really excited because we have multiple communities joining with nearly 100 events statewide. And that's only the ones we know about. And so that's how many we can count. And I just want to do a little shout out to Hazard. So Hazard has been doing Tree Week this will be their 3rd year. And Berea, this will be their 2nd year. And for Paducah and Georgetown, this will be their 1st year. But I also think there might be a couple of other Tree Week events around the Commonwealth. Another reason why we host it is that when we talk to people, we learn that they're really excited to find out about Tree Week. And we've been doing some tabling at farmers markets recently, and we stand by this beautiful, iconic artwork made by Sarah Turner at Cricket Press, and people are drawn to it, and it gives us an opening to say, hey, do you know about Tree Week? And, when you're trying to sell something, you can sort of see people averting their gaze, but people rarely avert their gaze. They almost always turn to us with this Tree Week. What is Tree Week? I like trees. Tell me about Tree Week. And so we try to gauge who they are and come up with the events that we think might be interesting to them. And they always say, can I please have one of those brochures? Because I think I want to do some of these events. Like I said, it's very grassroots. We've got lots of partners. I just wanted to highlight a few. Of course, the UK Department of Forestry and Natural Resources is a really key partner. But we also have partners that you might not necessarily expect, like the Lexington Public Libraries, a couple of nonprofits, Trees Lexington and Wild Ones, have members of their organizations, their boards, who are really closely aligned with the planning team that we have for Tree Week. So there's just really a lot of people who are very committed to doing this and helping us lift it off the ground each year. We have a lot of event hosts, and those event hosts are made up of individuals. So you could host your own event. Some people are doing a pollinator garden event in their own pollinator garden. Government entities, schools and universities, and nonprofit organizations. So in what way is Tree Week important to the community? Well, of course, first and foremost, it teaches people about trees and the nature where they live. And we know that the nature where we live is oftentimes the most important. A lot of people aren't able to get out of the city where they live. And so the ways that we can build better nature where we live, but also draw people into it, will help us all be better, be more healthy physically and mentally. Two, we know that people really thrive when they're part of a community. And so this provides a way for people to get out in the outdoors and join with others in the community. And of course, our ulterior motive, I suppose, is that we think that when people engage more with the urban forest, it's going to help to build and develop support for Lexington's tree canopy and for the tree canopies in all of the towns throughout the Commonwealth, where the trees where people live are the ones that really often need the most help and attention. So in 2021, we have, like I said, more than 65 events in Lexington and a bunch across the Commonwealth, almost 100. And they include all sorts of different kinds of things. So tree cares and tree care and tree plantings. Of course, you would expect that. Lots of opportunities to learn about trees. So there are going to be tree walks and tree talks and tree identifications. There's an event that's walking people to fruit trees in downtown Lexington at 3 gardens that are part of the Seed Leaf nonprofit organization. Tree appreciation and the nature where we live. So I mentioned yoga under the trees, but also forest bathing, art under the trees, and then trees and climate. So lots of different things. I'm not even coming close to describing all the different categories. But I wanted to highlight just a few of these. The first one I wanted to highlight is Adopt a Tree Kentucky, which is an event happening all across the Commonwealth. It's a virtual event, so you can do it anywhere you are. And I'll first call attention to this map. So the map of Kentucky here with the counties outlined is showing you any map that's not just the aerial photo, but is colored in, has at least one tree that's been adopted through this Adopt a Tree Kentucky program. Of course, our aim is to get somebody in all 120 counties to adopt a tree, or maybe many trees like we have in Lexington where you see the dark green. So what does it mean to adopt a tree? It really just means, first of all, that you'll go to our website here, and this is the website for Tree Week, and I think Ellen's going to pop that into the chat. And so on that webpage, you can see all the events. You can also link to the events in all the other towns that we've got that we're connecting to. But if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll find the Adopt a Tree Kentucky event, and in there will be a link that will guide you through it through a web form. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to do what Suraj is doing here with this tree. You're going to wrap your arms around the tree in order to measure the circumference, convert that to diameter, and then put that diameter, and if you know the species as well, along with your location, into a website that will return information about the tree benefits of that particular tree. So it could be stormwater abatement or carbon sequestration or pollution mitigation or reduction in the cooling of your house. So there's all sorts of benefits that it will give back to you. And then as part of this form, we also ask people to write just a brief thing about why this might be their favorite tree or why they wanted to adopt it. People can adopt trees on their, on their own property or on their school property or their church property or park property, really anywhere, because all you're doing is saying, I love this tree and I want to know more about it. And by submitting the web form, that tree then pops up onto our map. And then we will continue to populate this map with people paying more attention to the trees where they live. Another event that I wanted to highlight is the signature tree planting. So each year we try to plant a tree. We've been planting them at a public library. So our idea is to plant a tree and to sort of kick off Tree Week by thinking about planting a new tree and honoring that new tree. And so we'll be planting, interestingly enough, the Osage orange. And Lori and I did not talk before today. So I didn't know that the tree of the week was going to be Osage orange. We chose this tree. So a group of us were involved in the choosing of this tree. We were offered 3 different species that will be donated to us by the nonprofit Trees Lexington. And they offered to us white oak, sycamore, and Osage orange. And you might be wondering, why did they choose Osage orange? So we really wanted to center our decision about what tree to plant based on some information that we have about the trees in Lexington. And so just as Ellen mentioned, one of the key things we need in order to have resistance to pests and pathogens is biodiversity. And so we wanted to pick the tree among those three that were offered to us that's the least often planted in our city canopy. And that was Osage orange. And then the other thing that we know that's happening is that the climate is changing, and the climate is changing in ways that are going to make it a lot harder for some trees than for other trees. And so we've been doing a lot of work around this idea of climate adaptation, which is thinking about the trees you want to have on the landscape that will be resilient for climate change. And it turns out that of those three species, Osage orange is predicted to do better with changing climate. And since I saw Lori's presentation, I'm reminded that the climate envelope for Osage orange was more southern than us. And so as climate warms, that means that climate envelope is moving north, which makes it, so now I understand why this one has good resilience. Okay, and then there's these other three towns that are also going to have signature tree plantings. And so if you live closer to one of those, you might try to jump onto their signature tree planting. I also wanted to highlight an event that's going to be bilingual. And so I just wanted to use this both to tell you about the event, but also to highlight that we're really aiming with Tree Week to reach a broad audience. And so to move past the master gardeners and the Wild Ones members, the people who are already thinking about and valuing trees, to people who in their heart of hearts love trees, but don't have any idea how to better engage or more fully engage with them. And so this year we had an intern who suggested, hey, why don't we have some of our materials in Spanish? And we thought, yeah, why don't we have them in Spanish? And so we were able to get the poster translated to Spanish, as well as some bookmarks. So we have bookmarks that we pass out as well. And then that same intern who's now on our staff worked to create this event with an organization called The Nest. And this event will be done both in English and in Spanish. And it will combine learning about trees with art. And then finally, a lot of people have been asking us, look, we love trees and we love it that you guys create this week that's all about all the happy things about trees, but also, you know, we have this thing called climate change that's happening and we're really worried about it. And what would it look like if we centered part of Tree Week on talking about climate change? And so we're calling it climate conversations, and we're asking people to join the climate conversation. And so there's three events. One is really kind of a kickoff event on Saturday. It's called Signs of Change because it's about combining art with, you know, with both our worry, but also more than our worry, our feelings that if we talk with others about climate, we can have climate conversations that are hopeful. Just like Billy was saying, you know, invasive species can feel really worrying, but we can also be optimistic and hopeful about it, especially as we join together in community. And so I think the same is really true about climate. And so we'll be providing prompts for this. So a prompt might be, what if every street in Lexington or in our town had street trees? Or what if every neighborhood in our town had shade you could walk to? So sort of this idea that if we help each other envision the world that we want to live in, that's a very positive way forward. The second event is a week-long thing. It's also just done independently. So it's Join the Climate Conversation sign making. It's building off the first one. Make your own sign at home or at school or at church or wherever your community is that you want to engage people more in talking about climate and how we can be positive actors in changing climate. And then Tree Week ends with an event called Climate Conversations, Imagining a Better Future Together. And what we're intending for this is that we will join together in conversation in that same sort of positive way. How can we have more agency around climate change and build for us a Lexington that's more resilient to climate, that's better adapted to the changing climate that we see here? Okay, so this is just about all I have. I did want to say that Tree Week is a pretty heavy lift for us, and we have a little bit of funding from these organizations, which is greatly appreciated and really valuable and important for helping us to do this. And I hope to see you there.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate that presentation. We have a lot of things going on, so everyone can get involved.
Yeah, so exciting. Dr. Arthur, having been around and watching you all birth UFI and some of the great work and the interest, it's got to be so rewarding for you. But to me, it's just an impressive effort. And I know, like you said, there's so many people that have kind of attached to the ideal of celebrating trees. And I can't thank you all enough for kind of being that leader and giving us something to kind of rally around, because this Tree Week is really cool stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks so much, Billy. And I just want to say, it's the kind of thing that resonates with people, and it's really lifted up by a huge community of people who are really committed to this idea. So it's sweet of you to give us credit, but the credit really goes to the community of people who are doing so much work along with us, shoulder to shoulder. It's a great bunch of fun.
No, it's really cool. Yeah. And our team, our UK Forestry Natural Resources Extension team, is pretty heavily involved in Tree Week, as you mentioned too. And I think we're going to have Dr. Crocker talk about some of our events that we're doing. But again, a big thank you for being on the show. And I think next week we're going to actually have a special kind of Tree Week thing on the show as well. So great stuff. It really is.
Ellen, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about what's going on next week with all of our activities for Tree Week.
Well, we have so much going on. And as Mary mentioned, it's not just us, like the whole state is going to be doing Tree Week, which is really exciting. But we have a series of different webinars. We have a special edition of From the Woods Today, and then we have some field events that you could get involved with too. So every day during Tree Week, we're going to have some kind of event that you could get involved with from us. So Monday, we're going to have a session on how not to kill a tree. So kind of tree health, the things that commonly go wrong, as well as what you can be doing to promote the health of your trees with myself and Amanda Sears of Madison County Cooperative Extension. And then Tuesday, Lori Thomas is going to lead us in identifying Kentucky's trees, a webinar again over that lunchtime. Wednesday, we're going to have a special edition of From the Woods Today that's all about Tree Week. With tree planting and kind of more information about urban and community forestry. I think we're going to be joined by Bridget Abernathy from Kentucky Division of Forestry to talk about this. So just lots of great information. Then Wednesday evening, I'm going to be doing a session in Lexington, Kentucky, a field day, Mission Possible, Seek and Destroy Invasive Plants.
What a great time.
I love it.
So identifying some of these invasive plants and what you can be doing about them, and a great team on that one of other instructors. It should be a really, really good event. Thursday, you have the Kentucky Maple Syrup Project webinar at noon. That's with Billy Thomas and Jacob Mueller. Also that morning, we have some invasive plant removal. So go to the Tree Week website and you can learn about that. But we're going to go to one of our reforest, the bluegrass tree planting sites, and deal with some of these pesky invasives that have popped up. So another way to get involved. And then Friday, Matt Springer is going to be doing a session on wildlife and trees, another webinar. So whether you want to join us from your living room, whether you want to come out and meet us in person, and this is just us, there's lots of other great events that you can join next week. So we hope to see you there.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no excuse not to get involved. And if you know others that aren't aware of this, please share the word with them. Tree Week's really cool. And, I want to see that map completely filled out with all the counties having adopted a tree.
Me too. I thought
so let's help them get there, okay?
That might be a segment on From the Woods Today that we'll just say, hey, go out and adopt a tree. And we'll
there
figure,
you go. Yeah, we'll have to have Dr. Arthur back on that one.
Exactly.
And if you're hearing about this and you're thinking, man, I wish my community did Tree Week, you can. So think about this for next year. You could get involved. You could host Tree Week events in your community. And maybe Dr. Arthur can tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I just wanted to say that we have this great visual. You sort of one of my powers. and once we work with the artist to create that and pay her for her work, she is happy for us to share it with everybody across the Commonwealth. And so that's good. Yes. And so we can share all of those files, those get what you call them, those artwork files for things like Facebook posts and posters you might put in your own community. All of that is free to you once we've got it from the artist. And so that's just something that we're more than happy to share. And we shared it with the 4 communities I mentioned. We'll share it with anyone.
Yeah. Well, and you can help advertise for them too, right? Their events and what they've got going on. Yeah.
They can put their event on your website. Is that right?
The way that works is that yes, but each town has its own link, and that link to their events. And so we don't have to post them individually. It goes to the place where they've posted them individually. And if we have more towns that want to do that, we will incorporate them into the Tree Week webpage. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, let's fill it up. That's what I want to do. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, very cool. Again, Tree Week's going to be so much fun. So make sure you get out and get involved. Join us all next week for Tree Week events. And if you're in some of these communities that are hosting Tree Week events, please get out and support them, right? Especially some of these new ones. Give them that show of effort and interest, and let them know how important it is to you as well. So
there's so much going on, whether you're participating by watching a webinar in your pajamas on your couch at home, or you're going out in the community. I mean, there's a reason why you couldn't participate in something.
Yeah. So what a great story and a great message. And so get involved next week for sure.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Renee, we covered a lot of ground.
We did. So we greatly appreciate it, because you know what? This show wouldn't exist if you weren't watching it, and so one thing you can do is if you go to fromthewoodstoday.com, because I know there's going to be all these different questions of like, oh, what did they say? So you can actually go on our website and see those, rewatch any show that we've had in the past, and you can submit questions if you have any questions for us.
Yeah, we might even feature something that you share with us. So please let us know what you'd like to see on From the Woods Today.
Right. So until then, we will see you next Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.